Yo, how's it going? Doing back in the video, and today I'm going to be talking about how the 76ers, in my opinion, are probably one of the best teams in the playoffs. Now, that might not be the hottest of takes, because obviously the 76ers are a finals contending team, but in my opinion, they're probably a lot better than even a lot of people are thinking they currently are. Now, I know they did just lose a game to the Raptors to close them out, but that game honestly doesn't have anything to do. They're up 3-1 still in the series. They're going to win. So I don't think that affects it in any way, and overall, I just think the 76ers are by far the scariest team in the playoffs, and I'll be getting into that why in this video. So if that sounds interesting to you, please hit the like button and subscribe button if at any point you do like the video. And without further ado, without rambling on too much, let's get right into this video. Alright, so the first thing I want to get in the first video is going to be that they are currently thrashing the Toronto Raptors. Now, I understand that the Raptors weren't supposed to win this series, but they were at least supposed to make this series competitive, and outside of really the last two games, and really only game 3 is the one I'm counting, because game 3 is very competitive. That was a game they had to win to keep this series even a possibility for them to win, and although it was a close game, the 76ers were still showing why they were the better team. Even with James Harden fouled out in overtime, Joel Embiid was still able to go off, hit a game-winning 3, and they were able to get a 3-0 lead over the Raptors. And in the last game, I know the Raptors did just win it, but like I said earlier, it literally has nothing to do with anything. Like, they got a good one. They're going to get gentlemen swept now, most likely. The 76ers did not care about that game. It was kind of obvious. So congrats to the Raptors on getting a win, but I'm fully confident that the Philadelphia 76ers are going to close them out in 5 games. But if you look at the two first games of this series, the two games that were probably the most hyped up for both teams, the 76ers won those hands down, not even close, like just absolutely destroyed the Raptors, as throughout the first two games, they won a combined score of 243 to 208, and they were able to win both of those games by 20 plus points. The reason that is so impressive is not just because the 76ers are winning by a lot, but due to how close the series was really supposed to be going into it. Going into the series, a lot of people thought the Raptors had a chance to even win it. Now, although most people thought 76ers would, some did think the Raptors had a chance to win it, but those theories were shot down very, very quickly after just the first two games. And to make things even more impressive, that game 3 that had pretty much the series on the line for it, whoever won that was not whoever won it, but like that was to see if the series was still going to be competitive or if the series was going to be over in game 3. And when both teams are going at it, they didn't have James Harden for overtime, and they didn't have matise thybulle for the entire game. So they were missing one of the better scorers in the NBA with one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and they were still able to win a very tight contested game, which is very, very impressive and shows that the 76ers are just simply the better team and are frankly miles ahead of the Toronto Raptors. Now, it is just the first round, so the 76ers, a finals contending team, are supposed to look like this in theory, but they are looking a lot more dominant than a lot of the other finals contending teams. The only other team that I would say that's been super impressive has been the Milwaukee Bucks. Golden State has looked very impressive, but they're also playing a Nuggets team without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and it's only Nikola Jokic, and they also just lost a game as well. So they're not looking nearly as impressive to me as the 76ers are, and the only team that's even close is the Milwaukee Bucks right now, in my opinion. So I think for sure it's going to be either 76ers or Milwaukee coming out of the East, and this Toronto series is just a precursor of what's to come for this playoff run that they are about to go on. The second thing that I think is very impressive that they've done, James Harden has yet to really go off. Now, although he hasn't played bad this series at all, he also has not played like James Harden at all in this series. And that is what's so scary about this team. Because if they can get James Harden to play like the James Harden of old, while Embiid's going off, while Tobias Harris is still playing solidly, and all their role players are doing very well as well, this team is going to be borderline unstoppable. If we can get the old James Harden back for a one series in the finals, or he comes back in the playoffs at some point and looks like the James Harden that we once knew, they are going to be, like I said, almost unstoppable due to how good James Harden is. A lot of people forgot how good he really used to be, and if he can just step up a little bit and play like a fraction of what he used to be when he was back in his Houston days, that is going to be very, very scary for any team, because to have to guard James Harden on the perimeter while having to deal with MVP level Joel Embiid on the paint, that is going to be almost unstoppable. And then you just add on top of that Tobias Harris, who is a former all-star, by the way, having to guard him as well, that's 3 very hard players to guard and 2 pretty much unguardable players when they want to be. And that's going to be very, very scary once James Harden does fully get integrated in this system and once he does start looking like the James Harden of old. And that's what really makes this series so much more impressive for the Raptors to look this dominant, because they're doing this while only having Embiid go off. Now, yes, Tobias Harris is playing good, and like I said, Harden is playing solidly, but Embiid has really been the only superstar on the court, and they were doing this with just one superstar. Imagine if James Harden starts playing like a superstar as well, they would be even looking even more dominant, and it would just be that much more impressive. So for them to be dominating a team that was supposed to be competitive with them while one of their superstars isn't even playing up to par to what he usually does is extremely, extremely impressive. And if Harden does go back to his Houston days or even his first year with Brooklyn days, this team is probably going to be the favorites to come out of the East, and the rest of the NBA should be very scared. And then the third thing I want to get in this video is going to be that they're probably one of the best built teams in the entire NBA, meaning that they're pretty much have 0 holes in their lineup, as in their starting 5, in my opinion, they literally have 0 holes in their lineup, as their starting 5 consists of Tyrese Maxey, who is playing like a beast right now, by the way. I haven't mentioned him in this video, but Tyrese Maxey has been an absolute bucket for them in this series and has been one of the better point guards in the entire playoffs up to this point. James Harden, obviously, he can take over a game at any time he wants. Joel Embiid also can take over a game anytime that he wants. And then they also have a solid veteran like Danny Green, who's a great leader. He's been in these big games before, and he's also just still a very, very solid player who is going to give you solid minutes at any time he's on the court. And then Tobias Harris is probably their worst of the big 3, and even he is a former all-star level player, which is extremely, extremely impressive. And this team is just built so good. They have great veteran leadership on it. They have great superstar level talent on it. They have great role players on it. Like, this starting 5 literally has no holes. And then if you even go to their bench, they have Matisse Thybulle, who is their 6th man, and Matisse Thybulle is one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. Now, although he's not a great offensive player by any means, he's probably not even a good offensive player, his defense more than makes up for it. And for your 6th man to be a lockdown defender who can guard any position on the court, that is going to be very hard for any team to deal with, because when the other team's bench unit comes in and they leave like one of their stars in to kind of compensate for their bench being in the game, Matisse Thybulle can go on that star and pretty much be able to slow him down no matter who that player is, which is very, very impressive. And then they just have other 3 very solid role players behind him, and Paul Reed, Gorey Dang, and Shake Milton. All 3 of them are very solid players. They can give you good minutes and they can get hot on any given day. But really, their main 6 players that they do have is going to be very hard for any team to deal with, and they probably have the best starting 5 in the entire playoffs right now. The only team that can really even rival it is the Golden State Warriors, due to how good they are and how proven they are as a team. But in my opinion, the 76ers team just offers a little bit more than that Golden State Warriors starting 5 does. And overall, I think this is just one of the best built teams we have really seen in the entire NBA this season. To really recap what everything I said, the Raptors were supposed to be a team that really was going to help test the Philadelphia 76ers and see where they were at, and the Philadelphia 76ers have met that test every single night, except for the last game. That really doesn't matter, like I said earlier. But before that, the first 3 games, they were able to win pretty handily, and in the one close game they had, they were without their best defender in Matisse Thybulle, and also in overtime, they were missing James Harden, who is the 2nd best player on that team. So they were able to show very impressive how gritty they can be and how they can overcome adversity and still be able to win meaningful playoff games. So I think for sure, as far as the Raptors testing them, they have absolutely met that, and they've shown everyone in the NBA that they are the real deal and they are legit finals contenders. And then, like I said earlier, they're really doing this without James Harden going off. Yes, he's had good games, he's had solid games, but he has not been the James Harden that everyone expects to see, and hopefully eventually he will get to that point and this team is going to get that much scarier. And then to top everything off, they have one of the best built teams in the entire NBA, and their entire roster from top to bottom really has almost no holes in it at all, and that's why they are such a successful team. But unfortunately, guys, that's me for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think the 76ers could be one of the scariest teams going into the future, or going into the rest of these playoffs, should I say? And do you think they can make the finals? If not, who do you think is going to come out of the East, and who do you think is going to win the NBA Finals? I know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button, it means the absolute world to me, and I hope you have a blessed day. God bless you, so you never blessed day. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.